From the southernmost point of Torn, have I not been doing this in a while, to the lands of always winter, what is west of Westeros, and the shadows of the east. This is Casterly Talk, live from Tersley to Immemorial City to any elven home that you want to go hang out in. I've got Napzok live. I haven't been doing this for a while because Alden Diaz has been holding down the court, doing the Willow Wednesdays, the Willow deep dives and discussions with Nikki Kumar and so many other wonderful people who joined during the season. But we're here to do a little bit of a news catch-up, fun little short show tonight, because clearly, Alden, I'm not prepared to do
it. You've come out of self-imposed exile. You're returning. It's like, at the beginning of Willow where he was like, I don't know if I have the magic. And then by the end, he totally did.
There you go. I feel like Joanne Whaley has sat down and said, "You're not a good podcaster. You're not.
Walk back to your village. Take them underground."
It's been so fun to catch up with Willow via your eyes, your soul, and all the wonderful folks that came in here to hang out with us. And you'll see them back here on the show, as well as some of our Game of Thrones favorites. Don't worry about that. We are just kind of catching up. A lot of things to get to, Alden. But first of all, before we dive into House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, and yes, some of the news is a little old, but it's our chance to catch up since we've been concentrating on Willow and giving that show its just attention over the last 8 weeks or so. We do want to continue to talk about Willow, the behind the scenes, behind the magic 33-minute or so documentary on Disney Plus dropped. And I think we should talk a little bit about it all.
Yeah, absolutely. This was something that it wasn't a surprise, but in terms of the general flow of the Lucasfilm stuff on Disney Plus, it almost caught me by surprise because I expected an Andor one to come first, and there hasn't been an Andor one, which in my mind makes me think that Tony Gilroy was like, "Get that Disney Plus crew out of here, get them out." I don't want it. I'm not sitting down at a table. So they did Willow immediately after the show, which is great. And when the trailer for this popped up, it immediately set the tone because the trailer was very honest about the fact that at least part of this was going to be a bit of some kind. And it was about 50% joke. It's not like like everyone's in on it. Like, it's not like it's like goes into prank territory or anything. Like everybody's making a heightened version of the group, especially of Warwick, and the Lucasfilm executives are in on it. The department heads are in on it, the guest stars. But it was really heartfelt, really funny. And my main takeaway is consistent. Like it is the documentary equivalent of what the show is for fantasy TV.
That's a great starting point on it. I love what they did with it. Now, I'll say this up top, and I think you agree, and I'll have you chime in right at the top. I wouldn't mind a 45-minute serious doc. Serious meaning just an actual look at the show, a little bit more in-depth interviews with cast and crew. I think we got some wonderful moments. We'll talk about those. But on the other side, I absolutely loved the Warwick Davis-led kind of parody mockumentary style. Warwick, you and I were talking off air. Warwick Davis is just top of the pops with that stuff. I one of my all-time favorites of playing a swarmy version of himself is Steve Martin, Saturday Night Live or interviews, something like that, even the stand-up stage. At Warwick, he's right there with him, just playing Warwick Davis a-hole, and I love that part of the doc.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would love a more in-depth dive into specific choices, into the different directors, into breaking down the story, things like Jack Kilmer's involvement with his father, bringing back Joanne Whaley. Like, there's lots of ins and outs that I would love to know more about, and hopefully they have the rest of their intended run to get that kind of stuff out there. Hopefully they have a celebration panel, really crossing my fingers for that. But in terms of what they did choose to do, it was just like the commitment from everybody, from the top all the way down, from Michelle Rejwan, executive producer at Lucasfilm, all the way to, the trolls, like just everybody involved with this, the prop department having fake security footage of Warwick breaking the wands, leaving Ellie Bamber on the street and refusing to drive her to work. His Warwick coming in on his Segway like he's just a consummate Hollywood a-hole. It all felt really good, but it knew when to pivot out of the joke and emphasize what mattered. I mean, it was a Lucasfilm documentary and a Disney Plus documentary that made the active point several times at the end of, we didn't think that we would ever have gay characters on Disney. They use the phrase on Disney a lot. It's like they had the license to just be honest about the fact that this is catch up in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You had Amar Chad Patel saying, "I didn't think that there would be a brown Indian rogue, funny rogue character like Harrison for
Yeah.
now," and so it knew when to take it seriously. And it just
Mm.
made me already nostalgic for a show that's been over for like a week and a half.
I think what you're summarizing is like you said earlier, what the show, the vibe of Willow, that when it wants to be jokey, it's jokey. When it needs to be serious, it's serious. And this doc kind of captured that feel. And then not unlike the teaser, not even the teaser trailer, but that teaser kind of behind the scenes thing that they showed a while ago, where Warwick was
Yeah.
introducing the cast and you know playing dumb that he didn't know who Aaron Kellyman was, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love that vibe. Yeah, I think the important moments there. And you're right. And I guess if you're out there, you could look at it cynically that Disney Plus or Disney's like, yeah, keep saying, look at what we've done now. But I think it's important to acknowledge what they did and how important it was. And I'm okay with them taking that win, even as a company. And I'm not here to root for companies, but it was a win. So I think the doc celebrated it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gave everybody, I think, a way to shine personally and
Mhm.
comedically and creatively, because that's something that the modern era of fandom stuff has been really good about, because we have such an easy eyes into everything. Every show has a behind the scenes. It reminds me, we're here live. There's a Rings of Power one that I forgot to watch. I just remember that exists. So I'll have to
Oh,
watch that. Maybe we'll talk about that
oh,
with Rachel or something.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so you just had people watching. You realize that I was just having a thought live. But
How did
the
that look?
Willow stuff, like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like actual light bulb moment. The moment Alden realized he didn't do all his homework. But yeah, that what they've done so well, particularly with Lucasfilm for years, is always make you really like the people.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that's concept artists. That's like the other things don't really have that. It's mostly been Star Wars and indie that we got to know Kazan. We got to know obviously George. We got to know your Doug Changs and your Scanlons and your David W. Collins, who was the sound director on this and is now going to be on Mandalorian. We announced today, and so being able to do that with the cast and crew here, people like Debs Patterson, who's one of the directors, she stuck out to me as very funny and very cool. We've chatted with her on Twitter a little bit. She started doing documentaries. She did the Rise of Skywalker Legacy doc, which I think you just rewatched the other
Oh,
day, right?
I did not know that. I did not make that connection.
Yeah,
Holy
she
moly.
directed that documentary, and then she does Willow, and it's like she stayed in the family, and so it's cool to get to know the human beings as well. That's something that I think we like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I always say it's a Star Wars tradition, and not that you don't know. In other Star Trek doesn't know some of the people behind it, and I'm not even just talking about Roddenberry. I'm talking about just set
Mhm.
designers or creature props department people. But like that's a Star Wars tradition
Yeah.
where Joe Johnston, Phil Tippett, Dennis Muir, and that whole gang, John Dykstra became celebrities for us growing up, especially in my time in the '80s. You knew them, you knew those names, and that had not really been celebrated widely before. So to see it carry over to Star Wars with John Kasdan and the whole gang there, it was real fun. I recommend if you haven't had a chance to watch it, take a peek. It's about 33 minutes. It's a good lunchtime treat if you want to sit down and
Yeah.
watch it. Mm.
Absolutely, and I think that it's not an indicator of whether there's going to be a season 2, because that's a big question right now. Ron Howard said the other day that they're talking, but no one's sure. Kasdan has alluded to the fact that things are kind of janky up top right now, and so unless you're a MCU film, that's kind of like everybody's waiting
Yeah.
um, for their news and their resources and allocations and stuff. But you got Rejwan and people saying we think John's a genius and we love this and it was incredible and everything. So if morale could spend as cash, I feel like they would be golden.
I agree with you there. The streaming world is in flux for something that's still so brand new. They're figuring it out, and I even if God forbid they don't go with a volume two, it have to be some kind of business decision outside the pay grade of everyone in that doc, and we're looking at you, Bob Iger, but it is just kind of what it is. So we're all hopeful. And look, we
Mhm.
do have, you mentioned it earlier. I'd love to see something at Star Wars Celebration, which they did do the last time in Anaheim. And what better way to confirm or announce a volume two than in front of a packed convention hall?
Yeah, and it's so funny because looking back on the studio showcase panel from Anaheim in
Mhm.
2022, they were still, I think, doing either the end of the shoot or maybe reshoots. Not everyone could be there. It was just Ellie Bamber, Aaron Kellyman, and Ruby Cruz. And it's like we all knew Erin Kellyman because of Solo, and then we saw these other two young women there, and we were like, okay, like nothing, no disrespect, but we were like, we don't know you. Now, if they showed up, they would get the hero's welcome that they deserve. So it'd be great.
Maybe they will. Seems likely there. April is just around the corner for Star Wars Celebration London. We will both be there. So we'll be talking, I'm sure, about Willow again some way or another. Let's get a little bit of House of the Dragon news. Again, for those who didn't join up top, we are playing catch up on some of the news that we hadn't had a chance to get to while we're covering Willow here. And the first one, although we got to go to House of the Dragon, season 1, winning the Golden Globe for Best Drama Series. So we're here to celebrate it, but they beat Better Call Saul, Ozark, Severance, The Crown, a lot of shows that I think even George R. R. Martin in his blog was like, yeah, I didn't fly out because no one thought we were going to win awards, the Golden Globes. We can have a comment, some comments about what those awards actually mean. But this was kind of a surprising yet big, and I'll even say somewhat important win for the show this early on.
Yeah, my first two thoughts were watching the Globes that night. It's the first Globes in a couple of years. There's real life controversies. We don't have to get into all that here because it would take forever. But I had my eye on it and I was watching the show. There are people that I wanted to see wins for. But during the red carpet, I was like, oh, they have the two Rhaenyras and Miguel. That's it. They clearly don't think they have the momentum. And HBO is probably not paying attention because they would get everyone at a table if they thought they were going to crush. Yeah. And then when they did, and it was just Miguel and drunk Millie Alcock and Emma Darcy up on stage, and I was like, look at that. They clearly didn't expect to see there, as George would point out. And then my second thought was, in terms of the win and maybe a win that they not needed because they weren't hurting, but maybe a win that was sort of gratifying maybe for Miguel, who was on Game of Thrones season 8. Yeah. It's kind of like did we fall out of the cultural consciousness? Well, how about this? We just won.
We're drunk in Beverly Hills and we're winning. Again, I don't mean this too cynically. Like awards, what really are awards? They're fun. I think it's fun. The awards season, the awards culture on Hollywood can be a bit much at times, but I understand it. And awards still do mean something. They are definitely cred. And it's important to nominate the right folks if you can. But it is a game. It is something different. Yeah, even Will McLean in chat saying, I love House of the Dragon. Was surprising that Better Call Saul didn't win. And that's the way kind of it goes. But I think why I call it important is, going forward with the show, maybe the creators, we know Sapochnik is stepping away, but maybe they'll have even more confidence. Maybe they'll not feel justified, like they don't know their own skills and skill sets and what they can do, but just, I think, get more creative, be a little bit more brave and take the show to places they want to go. I think having an award on your shelf can make you kind of feel a little chuffed, and I'm okay with that. So maybe Ryan Condal and the team, as they build towards season 3 now, because they're already well on the way into season 2, not fast enough for my taste, get that show up. But I think it's a good award to buoy their confidence.
Yeah, I think that Game of Thrones itself speaks to the power or lack thereof of awards, with the whole power resides where men think it resides. Like that whole idea is awards. Like they don't matter until your favorites win, or like it's entirely arbitrary. I have moments every year where I'm like, F the Globes, to joke, it's bought and paid for, Academy, politics, but then I'm going to tune in this year because I want to see Everything Everywhere win. I want to see Ki Kwan give an Oscar speech, and then I'm going to be like, this is the pinnacle of the industry. So it entirely depends, and if that gives them that confidence, like you're talking about, Condal, who was a name that no one knew a year ago, coming in, and I mean it's good for him, and it's good for, I would imagine, I mean, I don't know how much HBO cares because they're HBO and they've probably got Golden Globes as their door stoppers, but it's like in a landscape where Martin has said we've had to put some things on the shelf, keep some things off, not all of these will go. Maybe it's like, hey, we just won. We're still on top of our game. Give us that Sea Snake show or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, please. Oscar film forecast. What a forecast to check in to talk about this. I don't think Game of Thrones ever won that Globe. So interesting how House of Dragon did with its first season. The Globes tend to award new shows over returning ones. So there's that there as well. And again, it's just something nice to know that it's there. The team, even like Eric Monroe says in chat, I'm still shocked Lena Headey never won.
Wow.
It's so arbitrary at times. It's about the campaigns. We're looking at you, Shakespeare in Love. So It is it's a weird thing, but it's a good thing heading into season 2. On the show here, we will be taking some of your questions live. If you're in chat with us, please join the conversation, hang out, ask us some questions, speculation, the things we think about the next season, all that kind of stuff. One of the things we do want to talk about here before we take a quick pause so I can catch my breath is we were looking at writer and executive producer Sarah Hess recently, early January, teasing the characters Blood and Cheese in season 2. For those who haven't read the books, we're not going to go too deep into the speculation or just the spoilers of what it was, but it does mean that some big stuff from the book, of course, that this series is based on, will show up, which will make some of those lore heads happy, Alden.
Yeah, Blood and Cheese is one of those things where you see it happening right now with The Last of Us and with a couple other things, and it happened a lot with Thrones to a point, because I don't know if you heard, but the show outpaced the books. But for
Yeah.
we're still waiting. But there was a period, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot with comic book adaptations where people are like, "There's wait until you get to this. I don't want to tell you what it is, but just remember these 2 words: blood and cheese." And this is one of those things. This is a red wedding, purple wedding, for the watch. Like it's one of those like, what are they talking about? And we're not going to get into what it is at all. But just knowing what I know of it and having talked about it a lot with Andres, with Nikki, with a bunch of different people, with our friend Andy from Force Friends Rewatch, it's heinous. It really is one of those things where I think it'll be the talk of the television world for the next month after it airs. It's going to be grim. So
yes. And that is you can read more. I always suggest you go to some of those wonderful Game of Thrones, World of Ice and Fire news sites like Watchers on the Wall and winterscoming.net. They have more information there. And if you haven't, maybe out there you haven't read Fire and Blood, this is that point, Alden, where I kind of wonder if you haven't read, but you picked it up and you're like, maybe I'll just get into it. You might want to refrain from reading till the show wraps up, and just kind of take the show and take the surprises and take the big moments as they come to you instead of waiting. I've experienced both with Game of Thrones. Didn't read, then caught up and read way past and read it all and studied everything I could. And season 4 on, I knew what was coming, and it does change. It's both fun, but it does change how you take in the show. So I don't know. So what do you officially recommend? Stay away from Blood and Cheese, right? Until the show.
I would say at this point, unless you left season 1 and you're like, I have to know the entire Targaryen history, I'm going to pick up the new illustrated one. I'm going to pick, like, if you're going to do a full deep dive and it's just going to be one of 1,000 things that you read, fine. But if you are a show watcher only and you're feeling the temptation to Google, don't do that. I would say, because this is not a slap against Martin at all, but he can get pretty vulgar and pretty brutal, and HBO might not do everything that he does. So it could change your expectations. There's one thing about Blood and Cheese that I'm pretty sure no network executive would allow anyone to shoot. I'll just put it that way. And so it's like, if you expect that, I don't want that to happen to any of our viewers or their expectations muddy their experience. So
yeah, I agree with that there. Before we get into some of the questions, we already got some great ones coming in here live. We do want to catch up with some of the Rings of Power news. This is going back a bit, but it's a couple of items we want to talk about there. First one that kind of had popped up was the news that for Rings of Power Season 2, Joseph Mall, who of course played Adar, is heading on. He sounds like, we don't know the details, we never will. Sounds like maybe he decided, I'm going to move on, do something else, which I personally respect as an artist. Sometimes you like, cool, you done it, you want to try something else. I have a tendency to jump around a project. I'm not comparing myself to him or even call myself an artist, but I get creatively bored easily and I want to move on, and I've done it. I've moved past it, and I'm good. That's why I'll never do movie news again. So I get it from his point of view. But we love this character. We loved his performance. We also love Uncle Mention, let's be honest. Alden, your reaction to his leaving, and then we got the casting of Sam Hazeldine from Slow Horses in the role.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed about this because I loved what he brought to the role, and because by happenstance, by just what I gravitate toward, I love a gothic tortured character. He was one of my most quoted. He was a character that I thought about a lot. He inspired my most recent Dungeons and Dragons character. One of the most nerdy things that I've said in a while. But yeah, I honestly, right? This is the channel to own it. But but the creatively though I understand it, and it's not like Adar's not going to be there. The writing is the bedrock. That's the foundation. Like if you give me more scenes with the new Adar, I'll get over it quickly. Game of Thrones had a few recasts. Other shows have in the past. Different Marvel things have had recasts, so it's fine. I'll get over it once I get another incredible dialogue scene like Adar had with Galadriel. In terms of the Joseph Mall of it all, I wish him well. He's posted a couple things that have really shown the passion that he put into the role on his Instagram. A couple of his captions, he's gone in depth about the work that he put into it, the studying, and there's been some speculation, like a couple people with loose lips of maybe was salty about some stuff that was left on the cutting room floor. I think maybe his son alluded to that, something like that.
Right.
And it's like, I get that. Maybe that was the final straw, but if he's playing it professionally, like he's an actor. He's not a young actor. He knows how it works. If he said that in private, it's irrelevant to the fact that I still enjoy the character.
Yeah, no, it's look, it's what's on the screen that matters in the end of the day, and that's the process. You write it, you shoot it, you edit it, and that's all of those are three separate steps to complete the project, and acting in, as well. So yeah, I wish him well. I'm gonna miss him, because some of his scenes were the most affecting in the show for me. The ones that just made you ask yourself some tough questions about what you thought about this land and what they were doing with the character. But we have a new performer who's gonna bring a take in, and you're right, Game of Thrones is a great example. The mountain recastings, were a little different feel, I think, but looking at some of the more high scale recastings on the show.
Dario, the big one.
Dario, yeah.
And Dario was like that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and I'd say an improvement. Ed Skeen, I apologize. No disrespect.
I would agree. And that one is a great example visually because of how it's not a good example visually. Does that make sense? Like, I think that with Adar, I know they're going to take, it's Sam Hazeldine, correct?
Yeah.
They're going to take Sam Hazeldine. He's going to have a long black wig. He's going to have elf ears, and he's going to have the scarring because he is a Moriandir. Like, he's a certain type of elf. He's got a certain costume, a certain weapon, a certain glove. He's going to fit that. Whereas, for whatever reason, when they brought in new Dario, they gave him a beard and let him have shorter hair, and they didn't even attempt to give him the same long hair or look. Yeah. Even though they have very different faces, I would have thought they would have told him, okay, you need to shave, you need to have a long wig. And they were like, nah. So if I can get over that, I can get over this very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I was just watching some stuff on Game of Thrones in preparation for another project I'm working on. And just was focusing in on that switch in the casting. First of all, Dario in the books is obviously way different. A lot of people are like, where the F's the purple hair? And I thought, man, maybe there's a chance to kind of lean into that, but they went the other way. And I can tell you, you grow a beard, you look different, you feel different, you act different. So I've been different for years with this scruffy mane. So Dario with the beard's different guy, different vibe, different. Vibe.
Absolutely. So we wish Joseph Mall best, and I look forward to seeing what he does, because he's so good, and that means in 2 shows that I love, he's had a small role and probably equal screen time as Adar and Benjen. And now we'll see. Maybe he'll show up in another franchise.
There you go. Well, he'll get there. He'll get to Star Wars one day. We also
Sith
had
Lord.
Sith Lord would be good. Season 2 of Rings of Power will have 3 directors at the helm. Just 3. I can't remember, what was the total last year? 3, 4?
3, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah. Should have done the numbers there. Charlotte Brandstrom, who did direct last season, 3 episodes 6 and 7, and Sana Hamry and Louise Hopper, or excuse me, Hooper, more likely, 2 O's there, are going to be sharing the directing duties throughout the 2nd season. Brandstrom will be taking on more of the episodes 4 of next season's episodes. This is pretty good. It's also a record-setting fantasy sci-fi show mark here with 3 women leading the charge here, Alden. This is good news for celebrating around these parts.
Absolutely. 3 women on the roster, and then the entire roster is them directorially. Of course, the showrunners are Payne and McKay, and then they're great. But to be able to take this step and to not question it, to just believe, I think says a lot about the leadership, and it says a lot that they trust Brandstrom to expand her role in terms of the show. I think she did fantastic work. on 6 and 7 last season. Those were some of the most gripping episodes. I mean, you've got the coming of Mount Doom in her episodes, and the way that the storylines all converge. And so she's got a great sense for this world, and I look forward to seeing the other talent get to find their way in this and see what they gravitate toward and what they don't, because that's some of the fun. In the same, we talked about Sapochnik with HBO and how he became the battles guy. You'll start to see sort of how people's strengths start to come to the forefront in different ways. And I like that they're expanding this out, and I like that they're bringing, women to a show where so many of the prominent characters, including, at least for season 1, the main character Galadriel, was a woman, and that was a perspective that was needed. And when you have showrunners that are men, and the pilot was directed by a guy, and after a while, it's like you got to lean a little bit into the necessary perspectives.
I really support it. It's not just for the sake of diversity behind the camera, perspectives behind the camera. It's also just eventually this will just be like wallpaper, right? You won't even notice it. Hopefully one day that it's just like you hear the names. But for right now, like we said earlier with the Willow, it's a win, and you take those wins, and I love what they're going to do. And to your point of Galadriel and some of the other main characters to have their perspective on it, it worked. It worked for House of the Dragon too, where you had some of the tougher scenes that I think if handled, not just quote handled by men, but handled the way Game of Thrones had dealt with this. Looking at like the stuff with Millie Alcock and Matt Smith, like if they not have that perspective could have really damaged those scenes. To not go in from a female point of view would have damaged those scenes in the wrong hands. And so I like this decision for Rings of Power.
Absolutely. I think it's very necessary. We had Claire Kilner doing some of that stuff over there, and Sarah Hess, who we mentioned, and bringing it over here. Not that Rings of Power, we're not saying it has the same sort of tightrope to walk, because it doesn't. But it requires still a different type of touch, and it's something that we want to see now, especially as it looks like some of the women, not only are we going to have new women joining the cast of characters, but some of the women we already had are going to have expanded roles. Some of the stuff that was teed up. So Galadriel, obviously her journey will continue, and it will continue until the end of this age of the mythology. But we had Disa on a cliffhanger with Durin. What's going to happen there with her? We had Nori leaving home and starting her proper adventure. We had Aarion and everything that happened at the end on Numenor. And there's Bronwyn and what happened with them. What are they going to do now that their king that they just crowned is gone, and her as a matriarch and a local leader, and Queen Muriel and Queen Regent Muriel. What's going to happen with her? She's been blinded. She's vulnerable. Like there's all these things that are there that it's going to be really valuable to have other people in the room for.
I agree with that. All right, let's reset here for a second. We got some of your questions coming in, so stick around for Casterly Talk. We are going to answer your questions live here on the show. All right, we are having some fun here tonight, hanging out with all of you live. And this first question comes from Brennan Mystical Mar. Thanks for the super chat, helping to support the show and the podcast. If this series, we were talking about House of the Dragon when he asked this question, if this series ended the way the Willow series ended with rock songs, what song would play at the finale of House of the Dragon? Whoa, that's we're looking for years in the future. And for the record, I understood that Willow decision was different for some folks and didn't work for everyone, but that's one of those things where I'm like, totally get it. I loved the choice, and I love the songs. The old rock DJ and me appreciated that. But so looking at House of the Dragon to the finale, is there one rock song that you have in your mind that pops right to your head? Are there all?
See, okay, you said you think series finale. I thought he meant the finale that we just saw. Brennan, if you can clarify, because I was thinking about season 1 finale. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. That's good.
But if you have an answer for the entire show, please.
Okay, yeah. For the show, I'm gonna go with my band, my guys, Oasis, because I'm still mad for it. I want Live Forever to play right at the end, because Targaryens want to live forever. So the Targaryen dynasty, that's gonna play some. It could be their, Liam Gallagher snarling through the mic for it, or it can be some cover version. That's where I go with that.
I love that because of the dramatic irony of us knowing they did not live forever. Like Ron Howard comes in, like they fell 170 years later. It's interesting, right? The entire show, I'm not quite sure, but for the season 1 finale, 2 songs came to mind. because season 1 finale. Thanks,
Season
Brennan.
1 finale of House of Dragons. So Rhaenyra Sterried. Okay, let me
Yes.
recalibrate what you answered there. Okay.
So Lucerys has just, been unalived, as the kids say. He's just been eaten. It's brutal, and she gets the news, and Damon is telling her, and she turns toward camera. Rhaenyra, Emma Darcy, their incredible performance. And then I'm trying to think. I feel like the first thing that came to my mind is Nothing Else Matters would come
That's
on.
pretty good. Yeah.
And I think that the slow intro, and we're in the credits, and you get the wailing of Nothing Else Matters. I also thought maybe Mother, Danzig's mother.
That's good.
Like,
yeah, that'd be all right. I'm trying the slow burn. The slow burn. I'm not a huge fan of the band, but I grew up with them being at the top of the charts, and so I was surrounded by them. But Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. The slow burn of her, the news is coming, so the song could fade up slowly, slowly, and then when she turns, maybe you hit.
And then for the beginning, the down. That's where the credits. That's where you get the directed by blank, and the condol and everybody. Yeah. It's such a. I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised now. Honestly, people in the comments, if you like to edit videos, let's start making these. That turn to camera is so good for a needle drop.
It really is. It really is. We got Laser Bolt said another one bites the dust. That'd be good. Andy Hodges say Bad Blood by Taylor Swift. There's some cool covers of that song out there too. So that'll work too. That's great.
I feel like Taylor Swift lyrics have become such a popular thing for people to connect to pop culture, and I don't really know her catalog that well. But yeah, that song in particular I do know. I mean, it's perfect for the scorched relationship, I think, between Alicent and Rhaenyra, particularly since they were teenage girls at one point, which is, that's the audience that Taylor built her empire on in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing to think about.
See, the problem with music questions and me, we had one on Force Center recently that stumped me as well, because literally I started my career out in the 90s as a rock DJ, have pop rock and radio now. So now I have 14,000 songs in my head, and I'm trying to choose the right one, and I will obsess over this for days until I get it right. That's a great question. Great question.
Yeah, it was a really good question. It's fun to think about, and it just, once again, we've talked about it. Everybody watching can go back to our discussions, and we'll talk about it again. I love the fact that it ended on just a look. It's so powerful.
It's a wonderful ending. So it's a Golden Globe worthy ending there. There we go. Eric Monroe. What Willow series character do you think would fit best in the world of Game of Thrones? I love those kind of crossover questions.
Well, my first thought is I don't want to condemn anyone I love from Willow to going into Westeros.
I had that thought there, like, well,
we can't send Willow. He's too pure. He would get treated heinously. We can't send. We can't send any of the kids. We have to send Borman or Allagash. I feel like
Borman comes to mind, because I would love to see Borman in a room with Cersei. But she needs something from him enough to where she can't just, kill him. She can't have him just destroyed, but he's going to be Borman. So it's almost like the I don't need the sexual tension there, but like Euron, when she was kind of frustrated / disgusted with Euron, but she needed something from him. It's a little bit of that dynamic where she just, because the way Tyrion and even like Bronn, the way they just kind of befuddle her, and that one season 2 moment where she actually breaks and laughs. I'm not talking about Lena Headey breaking, but the character just kind of like the wall comes down and she laughs at something. Tyrion says, "Oh, you're funny. Oh, you're funny." I love that dynamic. So Borman's a good choice.
Yeah, you thought similarly to me. Cersei would probably be there for some of this, but I was thinking about Borman taking Oberyn's role when Oberyn briefly had a seat, the Dornish seat on the council, and just like how he's just a thorn in Tywin's side, and how he just is this charismatic guy that comes to town. And I think that, or doesn't even have to take Oberyn's place. If you had Borman and Oberyn together, that's a team up. That's a dream team right there.
That's a good one. Allagash is good. I love Christian Slater. I have for a long time. I've made no bones about the fact that I think Young Guns 2 is the greatest movie of all time, and Arkansas Dave Rudabaugh is one of my favorites, even though he's you root against him. But yeah, Allagash is that fit, like him and Braun competing for stage time, so to speak, in the world would be fun. Would be fun. That's a great question.
Definitely. Yeah, those would be my picks for sure. Again, everyone else, I wouldn't do that to them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Definitely not Willow. I just don't want him in that world. Like even Tyrion can only protect you so much there, and then all the kids. They all have hopeful futures. So we already have a sand snake crossing over. She could fit back in the world, I guess.
Right. Of course.
This question again, if you're watching live, you want to ask us some questions about House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, World of Ice and Fire, Rings of Power, even Willow, or professional wrestling and all of this. Will McLean, check it out. In honor of the Royal Rumble this weekend, my favorite WWE event. What House of the Dragon or Rings of Power character would be best in it? Oh man, this is almost similar to the Rock question. There's so many ways to look at it. I definitely think Jade would be solid from Willow. I'm going to toss them into the mix as well. I know Will McLean didn't say Willow, but I'm going to include that in our coverage there. Jade would be great.
Now again, this is a loaded question because as we both know, lots of different kinds of Rumble success.
Yes, that was my next question. You're never going to see a giant go over, right? So, 1-1 might be who I'd put in there, but I don't know if he's going to go over. They're going to,
He would get the Kane eliminations record.
Yes. But then nine people would toss him out. Hound would be, I definitely would love to see the Hound come in at number 1.
Yeah.
And then number 2 would be the Mountain.
Hound and Mountain starting it. Yeah, I think that would be great. Kick them off, and then our number 3 entrant, our first after the intros entrant, who goes 3-30 and wins the whole thing, is Arondir. He's got that baby face energy, elven stamina, the agility. I think that'd be great.
And that's how you do it. And you book it in a way where he starts strong, and then he's in the corner. He's almost eliminated. He's hanging on, and then he rallies to get the big win, and you send him on to Mania. And he points. He does the Mania point sign. That'd be great.
He points at the like Mount Doom or like the Eye of Sauron. So Sauron's champ. I feel like Durin would do well. I think that on the House of the Dragon side, I mean, I could see the final 2 people being Arondir and Daemon. I think Daemon's one of those people where it's like he's dastardly. Maybe he goes under the ropes and then comes back and backstabs somebody.
These are great options here. And then I definitely would love to see young Rhaenyra go in early and survive, and then older Rhaenyra come in and eliminate her.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. Start playing with the different ages, the different castings. That would be really fun. I also wonder if there's a spot. There's a fun half comedic spot with Sir Eric and Sir Arik, where because they're identical twins, there could be some fake out stuff going on.
They do a switcheroo. Eric Monroe saying has to go with my boy Stannis. Yes, Stannis. There was this period of time in the 90s, the not glorious 90s of WWF back then, of when like the Royal Rumble would have like Dirty Dick Slater would show up, and some old school NWA wrestler that only us who were getting the newsletters really knew about, or trading tapes, and everyone else was like, who's that? And I think Stannis, even though we know Stannis would be like, who's the grizzled old dude with no chance to win? And then of course Brienne would be there to eliminate him.
Stannis comes out, he's got Melisandre with a mic in his face, and he says the Royal Rumble is mine by right. All who oppose me are my foes.
And then who I want? Who's Mord, right? Game of Thrones. The season 1, excuse me, the Sky Cell keeper up in the air.
Yeah.
He would be my
goat.
Yeah, he would be my bushwhacker. Was a bushwhacker Luke that went right over in like a second, just marched in. He would be my comedy spot too, where he'd come in and eliminate himself because he's confused. There we go. Will McLean says Sauron can do the Mick Foley spot with all his. That'd be great.
It's armored Sauron is Cactus Jack. Dude Love is Halbrand. And then Mankind can be Halbrand with his dark hood.
Yeah, that's
all moody.
That's Halbrand's music. Oh, that'd be great. See, we could turn with this. We could. I've had with my friends. For those that don't know, I worked in and around professional wrestling for about 15 years or so, and my friends and I would have conversations about Game of Thrones in wrestling terms, completely unironically. Just that's how we would communicate. Now so and so did the run in on the match, and they put this guy over there, and so the worlds collide so well. I could talk for a long time about this. Great question. Well, a couple questions left here. If you've got some questions, get them in here before we sign off. Oscar Film Forecast, check out their work there. In honor of award season, who do you think was the best actor, actress in world in House of Dragons or GOT? Lots of political, manipulative acting going on. Ooh, see.
Okay. I'll tell you first names that came to my mind.
Okay.
Best actor and best actress nominees.
Okay.
Best actor nominee, Otto Hightower. Best actress nominee, Marjorie Tyrell.
Ooh, I want to be the queen. Yes, because I think everything she does is true. I think that's even the nice things, helping the kids following the Battle of Blackwater Bay, all that stuff. It's real, but is it? How far does it go? I think that's a great choice.
Being able to be nice to Cersei to her face in front of all her handmaidens and all that.
At her. And Otto's. I like the Otto choice. What's some of your qualifications for Otto there for the Otto decision? I like this one.
What I love about Otto is on a rewatch, you have to wonder at what point, and it's something I remember bringing up in our discussions, and I still don't have an answer. And I think the point is that you never do. At what point, and maybe it was a point before the events of the series, did he stop loving this man as a friend and start thinking about Viserys as just an avenue? You go back to episode one at the tourney. Emma is still in childbirth. Things haven't gone wrong yet. And you have the Lord Baratheon calls, he shouts out, "The queen that never was," to Rhaenys. And Viserys kind of brushes it off, and he's like, you can have his tongue for that. And Viserys says, let them wag and won't change the succession. He's talking to the guy that will change the succession. Otto will be the one that does that. And did Otto already have these ambitions in mind? Did Otto already have ideas of, if Emma doesn't have a boy, I need to put Plan Hightower into motion, and we'll never know the truth about when he changed because he pushed for Rhaenyra that night. Is the irony of their showdown is that Rhaenyra, this person that he hates by the end and wants to defeat, he created her despite Daemon, and we'll never know where this guy. I mean, did he pretended to love his own daughter in some ways while he was using her?
That's okay. You won me over. That's some great choices there. It's easy to look at some of the bigger names like the Varys and the Baelish, and I absolutely think they'd be up there. But they're so good that everyone, you just kind of know anything Baelish says, you're like, this is BS. But I have to accept it. So you're probably acting. So it's like he's so good at his job, you just kind of naturally don't trust him. There's a part of me that wants to say up to a certain point in his life, Ned Stark, because Ned Stark had to act like that was his kid for a long time.
It's a great choice. Great choice. And to internalize real, he was method. He had to internalize real scorn from his spouse and from his people, and real awkwardness and shame and dishonor, and use that for the performance.
I love that. You could almost say Melisandre. Literally, she had a little help. She had some props, both a necklace and some potions there. But I think she put it down there as well.
I have an answer.
Yeah,
I have the Daniel Day-Lewis of Westeros mythology of Martin's entire world, Jaqen H'ghar.
Well, yeah.
By default.
Yeah, because there's part of me. It's like, well, Arya a little bit later on, but it's like, yeah, they're totally they're in character. Like what was Lady Gaga spoke with an Italian accent for 18 months preparation like that's Arya. Like just doing her thing there. So that's a great question. Fun stuff. We got a technical question, a programming note question. Eric Monroe, any timetable on the Thrones rewatch returning? I can't wait for episode 408, one of the few big episodes I watched the group. Yeah, so I don't want to do false promises. We're very close. I'm so thankful for Alden being on the team with me here and helping run this thing, but also for Willow and him leading that charge. It gave me some time to pull back from Game of Thrones, Rings of Power, and just concentrate on some other things, trying to do some stuff on Force Center and the YouTube side. my Sports Card ASMR channel, trying to do all this kind of stuff. So I haven't been able to focus on Game of Thrones, and I want to be able to. So inside a couple weeks, it's in my mind every day. It's on a big board of things I have to get to. But that requires sitting down and watching the episode 2, maybe even 3 times, just kind of soak it all in and go over notes. But I want to get to it. I want to get to that episode with Alden. Andres Cabrera wants to come back. So for that one, and so soon, Eric, you've been so patient. It's been a long time. I mean, it's been about a year or so between episodes, but once they're all done, they'll be there to take in as a playlist. So soon, but I don't want to give false hope. You know what I mean, Alden? I don't want to create expectations.
And on the plus side, I will say this is planning way ahead. When the Game of Thrones rewatch is done, then we could do a House rewatch. Then we could do a Rings rewatch. We're going to revisit Peter Jackson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And let me tell you, Eric and everybody watching, there will be another Game of Thrones rewatch. Like at some point, we'll get back to them. And because I mean, we're going to be rewatching that show forever. I'll be rewatching that show till I die. So.
It's so weird. I had about to rewatch Mandalorian, and there's something comforting about rewatches. And even though I'm in the middle of this Game of Thrones rewatch for the show that's on a big pause. I was watching again some clips. I was watching this video for this other project I'm working on. I saw some like season 2 stuff, and I was like, God, I love season 2. I just might watch season 2 again. So it's always in our blood. All right. On that note, we're going to start getting ready to sign out here. Just a fun little checkup episode. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. If you're listening here on YouTube, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, do all those wonderful YouTube things here. We're not going away. Got a lot to talk to, lot to talk about, lots of people to talk to, Alden. We might be working on some interviews down the line in this year, all this kind of thing. So just bear with us as we launch into 2023. The Willow stuff is there. I hope you all enjoyed the show, can go back and take it in. All right. So Alden, final words from you.
My final words are, I'm upset that we're not going to have these shows this year, possibly, maybe, hopefully Rings makes it. But we're going to have plenty of adventures in the meantime. There's stuff that I'm kicking around. We're going to nail down some ideas. And the march toward London begins with the 2 of us, but we're going to be keeping on here. Is that English? That's proper English. I'm going to go with it.
That works enough. Yeah, check also YouTube Shorts. I got some figure reviews here on the channel ready to go. Come in February. Working with Gentle Giants and stuff. So stay tuned. We are here, and we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about all these shows, all these worlds. And thank you all for making it happen. We'll see you next time here on Casterly Talk. Bye.